Powered by Riverside FM.
All right, so our next guest here was Ohio born and bred. His career statistics include playing in 132 games and 77 starts. He spent a ton of time on Cleveland radio. Boys, help me welcome Browns alum John Greco. John. All right, John, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Hey, guys, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here. And so before we get started, I do have, we have plenty of questions for you, but I do have to talk about an event that we will be attending along with you and plenty of other Browns alumni and fans in March of 2024. And I'm talking, of course, of the Cleveland Browns fan cruise. I know you'll be there. You'll be there soaking in the sun and riding the waves with the rest of us. So we have to say, being that we are brought to you by the Cleveland Browns fan cruise, podcast of the Cleveland Browns fan cruise. We'll be on the Cleveland Browns fan cruise and emceeing most of the events on the fan cruise. We are really looking forward to sharing that same Browns fan cruise with a legend such as yourself. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about what they can expect on the fan cruise?
Yeah, first, guys, I'm really excited. I think it's a great opportunity for Browns fans to connect with former players. I know other teams, in particular the Miami Dolphins, and I think the Vikings and some other teams have done a similar event, and it was wildly successful. So we are very excited to be part of that new initiative. And really, it's just going to give me an exciting chance to, link with fans, connect with fans, see some of the former players that I spent time with on the Browns, some guys, some legends that played before me that I looked up to, that I wanted to play like, and some guys that wore Browns uniforms that played in a heck of a lot of games and played really well. So we're really excited to connect with fans, first and foremost. And, it's a lot less pressure now because I'm not playing, so I'm not directly under fire. We could just kind of reminisce about some of the good, some of the bad, answer some questions, and talk, past, former, current, and really just talk Brown shop in general. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get back into the fan cruise a little bit here later on in the interview. But right now, let's talk about you a little bit. I know, like I said, you are raised in Ohio. You went to Boardman High School, kind of a stone's throw from Cleveland down there in Youngstown. Can you tell us a little bit about your time there?
Yeah. So grew up in Boardman, Ohio. Like you said, just out of Youngstown. So rich football tradition. As it is anywhere in Ohio, we take pride in football in the state of Ohio. Grew up playing all different types of sports. Didn't start playing tackle football till I was in 8th grade. My mom said I was too small, or she didn't want me to get hurt, which is kind of funny. But yeah, played throughout high school at Boardman. Won a lot of games. Played some tough competition. Played Cleveland St. Ignatius. They were in our division at the time, so was used to playing some Cleveland teams. Played Maurice Claret against him in high school, who went on to win a national championship with Ohio State. So some stiff competition, played in a lot of fun games, had a lot of great memories, and that was just kind of a small blip on the radar of my football career.
You mentioned great memories. Did you have one that specifically stands out from your time at Boardman?
Yeah, really just, the homecoming game, senior night, definitely, having my parents walk me out on the field and winning the game. But just spending time with friends. It's funny when we watch kind of every now and then someone will send me a highlight tape of 2003 or 2002, and it's funny. It's like, oh my gosh, how was I that bad, or why am I that slow? But I unfortunately say that a lot about my time in the NFL too. So it's just funny to see some of those old clips and laugh. But yeah, just the lasting memories of playing with my boys and winning games and having fun and being from a part of Ohio that has a rich tradition in football and takes a lot of pride.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you went from Boardman and you stayed in the state and attended the University of Toledo where you played football. So can you touch on that a little bit? Yeah.
It was easy. We had a really talented offensive line in particular. We had several guys go Division I, so the whole recruiting process was an exciting one. It seemed like every day there was a recruiter pulling guys out of class and visiting with them. We had our center went to Georgia Tech. Our one tight end was a 4-year starter at West Virginia at the time when Steve Slayton was there. Pat White, they had some talented guys. They were really firing all the cylinders with Rich Rodriguez. Our other tackle went to Wake Forest and was a 4-year starter. So we had some studs on the offensive line. Our quarterback played professionally in Italy. He played at Youngstown State. Our backfield went to the Naval Academy, Youngstown State. So we had a really talented team. So it was a lot of fun. And throughout that recruiting process, it was way different than it is now. Obviously, I don't know how many stars I was, and I didn't have a highlight tape out there. It wasn't as easily as accessible as it is now. But it was in between Bowling Green and Toledo. And personally, I wanted to go to Bowling Green. I thought I was going to go to Bowling Green. And I I took a visit there, and not to say, I'm not going to sit here and try to, badmouth them right now because it was like 5 coaches ago. But Urban Meyer was the head coach at the time. It was right before he went to Utah. And I was at a game. They won. They beat like Ball State or someone. And I was in the locker room after the game. And, I just didn't feel the love, didn't feel welcome, like I was a part of the family, like they wanted me there. And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way just because I was really excited about the visit and the opportunity. And then, along comes Toledo, and I don't know where I was on their list, and, who knows how things shook out, but I went to a game there that my recruiter started, talking with me and really conversating with me. And I went to a game there, and it was the exact opposite feeling. Right away, I felt like I was part of their family. I really felt wanted. My uncle was a professor there at the time, so I knew a familiar face. The center that I was referencing that went to Georgia Tech, his brother played at Toledo, was a center. So I had some familiar faces there. And, long story short, I committed, I redshirted, I started 4 years after that, met my wife there, and, never looked back, created a lot of great memories.
Now, did you ever consider going out of state, or was it important to you just to stay close to home?
Really, guys, I got offers it was mostly MAC schools and then some smaller out-of-state schools. So, really the decision was kind of easy. At the time, the MAC was, Marshall, Bowling Green, Toledo was having a lot of success. So I don't recall Marshall really aggressively recruiting me. And it was mainly, Akron, Kent State, and more of the in-state teams, but the majority of the MAC teams were the only ones that showed interest. I was getting letters from other schools, but it really came down to it was in between Bowling Green and Toledo. So I don't want to say that was by accident or that I was like, oh, I have to stay home. It's just the way my hand was dealt, and I couldn't be happier. I was very lucky to be a part of Toledo. I won a ton of games there, and it worked out for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then I know from Toledo, you were drafted by the St. Louis Rams in the 3rd round in 2008. So can you tell us a little bit about your time in St. Louis?
Yeah. So right away, I walked into that locker room. I was drafted. Scott Linehan was the head coach at the time. The whole draft process was awesome. Being the 2nd pick in the 3rd round, it was really exciting. And it was a lot different then. They did it's not like they do it now where there's, all the rounds or the first round in the first night, and then they go from there or however they do it now. They did the first 2 rounds in the night 1. So I remember my agent being like, you're graded anywhere between 2nd and 5th round. And we were like, well, it's a big range. So we just kind of, had a clear mind. We're like, hey, whatever happens, happens. All my work, my resume is complete at this point. We just got to hope a team falls in love. And I got that call from the Rams, showed up to the locker room, and, we started playing games, and we did not have a lot of team success. And Scott Coach Linehan was fired week 4 in my rookie year. So it was a lot of adversity right off the rip there. And they were still kind of had remnants of the greatest show on turf and all the success that they had in their early 2000s. There were still a lot of familiar faces in that building. And for me, Orlando Pace was on that line, Rich Incognito, some guys that played a lot of snaps in the NFL. So I was able to learn from, Orlando Pace being one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL history. I was able to learn from him. But to be quite frank, I think I was drafted to play tackle, and I was more fit for inside three. So it didn't work out in St. Louis. I was ultimately traded to the Browns when Pat Shurmur was the head coach, who was my offensive coordinator in St. Louis, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and you mentioned the trade to the Browns. That happened in before the 2011 season. I know you ended up playing with the Browns from 2011 to 2016. So once again, tell us about your time with the Browns. I mean, that's what I know all our listeners have been waiting to hear is how is your time with the Browns?
It's funny. I tell people this a lot, and when I got traded, it was during camp. It was right after the collective bargaining agreement was signed, and free agents at the time, because I got tendered, had to sit out of training camp for like a week or something. So I was just kind of hanging out, getting ready for training camp, and my agent calls, and he's like, "Hey, I was going to get dinner during training camp," and he's like, "Hey, you've been traded." And I was like, "Oh my God, 31 other cities, here I come." And I was like, "Greg," I was like, "To who?" And he was like, "The Browns." And I was like, "Oh my God, you gotta be kidding me." I was so excited to come back home because my whole family were Browns fans, all my friends, everybody back in Ohio. I grew up a Browns fan. So I was really, really excited. I literally got in my car. I went to the house that I lived in, grabbed a handful of things, kind of loaded the car up, left everything else in the house and left, and drove to Columbus that night. And then I drove to Cleveland the next morning. So it was like a, 8-hour drive to Columbus that night. And, I celebrated a little bit in Columbus, and then, got to work the next day in Cleveland. But it was a blast. The guys that I got to play with in Cleveland, unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of team success again, as Browns fans know. But I think the best part about playing in Cleveland is I think the team and the fans share the same kind of mindset, and it's grit. And a lot of fans feel like, maybe people don't respect them or they're always the underdog. And I think that's what creates such a great aura about the city, about the grit of the fans, the team. And, you're starting to see them have recent success with winning a playoff game. And we're hoping Deshaun and the guys now can continue the season on the right path. But for me, I got married when I was in Cleveland. We had our our daughter when I was in Cleveland. We had my son when we were in Cleveland. We played with a lot of great guys, played with Joe Thomas, Hall of Famer, played with, some potential future Hall of Famers, met some of my best friends and created a lot of great lasting friendships and memories. And to be honest with you, I think one of my favorite pictures of my playing career is I'm running out of the tunnel and just seeing the crowd behind. And that was a feeling that never got old. No matter what our record was, no matter what the situation was, the fans always showed up and supported. And that's one thing that I loved about the city and I loved about playing there.
For sure. So let me ask you, obviously you went to school Boardman and in Toledo. At what point did the NFL become a realistic target for you? I mean, and we all grew up wanting to play ball as kids, but when did that moment hit that you were like, yeah, I have the skill set, I'm big enough, I'm strong enough, I can do everything that's required, up until getting drafted there?
Yeah, so I would say it was going into my second year of playing at Toledo, so my redshirt sophomore year. We won the MAC my redshirt freshman year. We had a great team. And we got beat up pretty bad in the Motor City Bowl against UConn. And I remember, that first year, you're still trying to get adjusted to the new speed and just the workload, the playbook, just different terminology, the strength and the speed of the game. So I feel like I was kind of, hanging on for dear life my redshirt freshman year. And obviously I played well enough or they would have pulled me, because I don't really remember that far back. But I do remember going into my second year and having a conversation with my offensive line coach at the time. And he was like, we need you to be the leader of this group. because I played right tackle my freshman year and got moved over when our All-American candidate Nick Kaiser graduated. So I remember our coach telling me, "We need you to lead this front, and we need you to set the tone." And I did that. So after my redshirt sophomore year, I remember having the conversation, and they were looking for me to be a captain, to be a leader. And I remember the guy that recruited me was the tight ends coach and my offensive line coach. We had the conversation in the off season and said, you can be an NFL player if you put in the work. And I remember thinking, wow, no one's ever said that to me. I never had that thought process. I was just trying to keep my head above water and, go to school, go to class, play ball. And then, I had a great individual year that year, and we had a great team year. We won a bowl game. And then going into my junior year, it then became not if, but, do you want to be a first or second rounder, or do you want to be a free agent, or what? And, or do you just want to kind of, claw your way in there? So that was in the back of my mind. And I was like, wow, we're having these real conversations now. And I had a great year. And then going into my senior year, it was, look, you have a chance to do something special, or you could just be another guy and kind of, kind of limp into the league. And I really put the work in, and, we had a great offensive line, all 4 of my years there, but I really made it a point of emphasis that I was like, no, I want to be drafted. I want to be drafted as high as possible. I want to represent this university and in a great way.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And back to your time with the Browns here. I know kind of spending time with the franchise, you obviously, it's more than just playing football. You become involved with your teammates off the field. You become involved with your community. With all that in mind, do you have a specific off the field memory that is your favorite from your time in Cleveland?
There were so many things that we used to do. It's going to be hard for me to, really pin down one. For more of a fun side, I always tell people, and it was in, his book after getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, but Joe Thomas used to throw the best Halloween parties. And that was always a great memory. We would, that would be kind of the, a little bit about the midpoint of the season. So it was a great way for us to just kind of let loose and have a mental break and have fun with just guys on the team. And they would bring their girlfriends or wives, and we would just really be able to cut loose and have fun. So that was always a great memory. But other than that, just going to dinner with the guys, hanging out in the equipment room, lifting weights, all the little things that, you take for granted when you don't pay attention to when you're going through it. But the old heads would like, man, just, cherish this, because this is the stuff you'll miss. And they were exactly right. And I found myself saying that as my career progressed. So it was just the little things, traveling together, playing road games where it was you against the opposing city, the opposing team. Everyone hated you, outside of the Browns faithful that would travel or lived in that city. So that's probably the stuff I missed the most, or it was the most memorable. And then, kind of fan engagement or community relations stuff. The Browns are among the best in the business, and they have a great team that helps put those things together. And one that I was always a part of was Thanksgiving food drives. We would go to the Cleveland Food Bank and help, distribute meals to whether it was churches or mission groups or families. So that was a lot of fun. The Christmas toy drives, we would go to Dick's Sporting Goods, and these kids would just, go on a shopping spree. And that was a blast because you'd see their faces light up if they got a new baseball glove or basketball shoes or a jersey, and their faces would just light up. So it was little things like that, going to children's hospitals, going to visit wounded veterans or at the VA hospital, things like that where you realize the impact that you have from your time playing and how you can affect other people. That's something that, now I don't get to experience as much because some of the magic wears off when you're not actually wearing that jersey. So those are the things that really were special to me.
John, once you're a Cleveland Brown, you're always a Cleveland Brown. The magic's always there.
Hell yeah.
You're right. But it's a lot less opportunities for that. I can't just be wandering into hospitals and talking to patients.
Just tell them I'm John Greco. Come on.
No, that is all great stuff. Fantastic. It's always good to see the guys give back, especially whether it's while they're playing or afterwards or whatever the case may be. I will say, Joe Thomas's Halloween parties
those have come up a couple times. Those are pretty
popular.
wild.
Yeah.
They were a lot of fun, and that was definitely a day on the calendar that everyone had circled and extra dotted.
Talking about Joe Thomas, obviously inducted in the Hall of Fame this year, and you got to kind of see him work day in and day out. Can you just talk about like what made him so different or so great?
Yeah, this is an easy one, and I tell everyone this when he comes up. His attention to detail and preparation, and he was such a perfectionist, and his consistency. I think that's what made him as great as he is and was. You see a lot of talented players, come in and out of the league every day, every year. And the great ones look the same no matter what the conditions are, no matter what the situation is. And Joe, in my best way to describe it was he was like a robot. So, you watched him right away, and he was, when he played, obviously now he looks like a cross country runner. But when he played, he's a big man, strong, long, tall, could move. But his ability to bend and his pass set was so efficient and so quick. And I think efficient is really the word that I want to hammer home, because his ability to get off the line of scrimmage, anticipate the snap count, and be in the best position to allow him to have success. That's what made him so great, and just his work ethic. So, and that's what left tackles are graded on, is pass pro. It's giving up sacks. It's what is he doing? And, when he played, no one talked about him because he was just lights out. And that's the thing. It's like, you don't want to be talked about when you're an offensive lineman, in particular a left tackle, because we've seen it in the time that he's not around anymore. It could be an issue at times. So you want a guy that's going to be dependable, that, no matter what the situation is, no matter what the down and distance, he's going to get his job done. And that's what made Joe so special as a player.
Awesome. I know you talked too about you had played tackle and then inside three as well. Just speaking along those same lines, now that Joe is gone, there's been a lot of discussion this year with this team with Jed Wills and obviously the rookie coming in from Ohio State, and a lot of guys think it's really simple to just kind of plug and play. Can you talk about, from your own personal experience, like how difficult that is to go from tackle to guard and back and forth again to one side of the line to the other?
Yeah. I think tackle is a completely different conversation, and you wouldn't think about it, but if you can imagine their footwork and their stance in particular, the stagger that they have, it's not a mirror image it is, because when you're flipping, your post foot, which is your lead leg, your inside leg, that is up, and then your kick foot is back. So they have a different stagger, and when you rep something over and over and over, and I bet if you asked Joe, he'd probably hate to admit it, but if you asked him, hey, if you went over and played right tackle, would you be as effective? And I would bet a lot of money that he would say, I would be able to get the job done, but I wouldn't be as good as I was or as I am at left tackle. Some guys can do it. Some guys can do it at a high level, and you can still be efficient and effective, but it's not as easy, to your point, as just saying, oh, he could just get it done, let's just flip him over. I think it is a little bit easier at guard because your stagger isn't as great. You're the different hands down, but for the most part at guard, you're in that phone booth and you're fighting in like a 2 to 3 square yard area. And you have a center next to you and you have the tackle next to you. But when you're out on that island and you're used to taking that footwork and shooting your inside hand as opposed to now your offhand, it's different. It's very different. And the balance that you have to have, and the core and the strength and just the movement that you have to be successful at one position. It's not as easy as just saying, hey, go over there and be the same guy, because I bet if you asked around the league, a lot of tackles would admit that it's not as easy.
Yeah, that's great insight. Just as Kenny was saying, we hear it a lot. Is just flip DeJuan Jones over to the left tackle. It's gonna be fine. But it's good to hear from a former player that it's not as easy as you would think it is. But no, you obviously had a great career and did good things here for the Browns. We loved having you. But for most guys, they do get kind of this second life after football. So can you tell us what you're up to today?
Yeah, so when I left the NFL, I finished with 2 years with the New York Giants after my time in Cleveland. And that was great because you got to snap for Eli Manning and be a part of a historic franchise there in New York, which was very cool. And when I finished my career, I knew time was up. There was no maybe I could sneak on for one more. I just knew that it was it for me. And that's, if you can go out on your own terms, that's what a lot of players wish they had. And I was fortunate enough to where I could, kind of choose my own destiny and call it quits when I wanted to. But yeah, I enjoyed that first year of retirement. I was golfing a lot. It was, around COVID. So, everybody was navigating that in different ways. And for me, I didn't have to go through the preparation that it takes to, go play an NFL game. I was more of a fan. And, when I left the league, it was just kind of, I wanted to clear my head mentally and just give my body a break and rest. And, I would say come June of 2020, I started golfing, because that's when the COVID restrictions were lifted, and I golfed a lot, and it was nice. And then, it's funny, I was like 36 years old or whatever, maybe a couple years younger. And, 35, 36 years old. And I was like, man, I'm retired. What's next? I don't need to rush into anything. I can kind of take my time. I don't want to force anything. But I did know one thing. I didn't want to get into coaching. And, I was having fun doing kind of radio hits and kind of, small little broadcast things, but I knew that I didn't want to pursue that as a second career. I was more treating that as kind of a fun hobby, a way for me to keep my mind in football. So, I spent about 2 years away from, just doing anything. And then I was going stir crazy. I was like, all right, I need to feel productive again. And, I got the opportunity to, join a practice, and we have a financial planning practice. So I got licensed, became a financial advisor a little over 2 years ago. And, I go to an office most days, and, we have a great bunch of clients, and, it's kind of, given me a new, purpose and something to help build and grow. And I'm really, really enjoying it.
That's awesome.
Sorry, I just wanted to go back to real quick, just the football career. So drafted in 2008, retired around 2018, right? So that's 10 years. Can you just talk about how quickly that? 10 years is a long time.
Yeah, it was 11 years. It was 11 years. So I played. Yeah, I played 11 years. It went fast, And it's funny because everyone tells you that. So when I was in my first 3 years, everybody that was I would say 7 years and up. That it's like this old man's telling me this, this goes quick, cherish it. And then I would say about once you get to year 4, I think you just become like a robot. Where really before that, year 3, because you're so used to the routine, you're a professional at that point where you know what you need to do to get ready to play, and then it's just your job. You just you're having fun, but you know what you need to do to get ready to play. So once you do that for 3, 4, 5 years, and you're in year 6, year 7, you're then looked upon as like the ancient monk at the top of the mountain that people only see once every 10 years. You're old at that point. So, I had and then you can help younger players at any position. Even though I don't know one thing about playing safety or corner or running back, I knew how to be a professional, and I knew what it took to be a good teammate. So I would try to, help players learn how to do that, and really just be a leader. And I had fun meeting different players from different backgrounds, from different schools, different positions that I really had nothing in common with. And I thought that was a special part of playing. But yeah, 11 years ago, it went quick. It went fast. And these 5 years that I've been done went fast. At times, it feels like I never even played, which is a good thing because I'm able to walk around and my body feels good. But yeah, it went fast.
Oh, that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, we say that about everything in life, right? But I mean, shoot, when you what's the average NFL career?
Yeah,
is like
3.5 years.
Yeah, so the fact that you got to play it for 11 is phenomenal.
Yeah, it was a great ride.
But yeah, I would love to continue to talk football for days and months and hours and however much time we have. But I am going to bring this back to the fan cruise here a little bit and the time that we're going to share on the open ocean in March of 2024, including a couple amazing stops along the way. So let's talk about that a moment. What's the event or activity during this entire fan cruise that you're most looking forward to?
You know, I've heard rumblings of some competitions, maybe between former legends and fans. I know there's going to be a lot of games, trivia, Q&As. So really, I'm looking forward to everything. There's not one thing that I'm not looking forward to. I'll say it that way. But just connecting with fans and reconnecting with guys that put on that uniform that either I was in the locker room with or I knew played, in my time before me. Or in time before me. So, hopefully a little competition because, I want to test my knowledge of maybe some Browns trivia or NFL trivia, and see what I've retained, what I know about the organization, and competing with fans and whether it's games or trivia, but it should be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's going to be a highlight for all of the fans as well, is just being able to mingle with you guys, ask questions, talk to you like you're normal people,
Exactly.
But
do you play any dominoes, John?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do play dominoes. So I don't know if that's one of the, activities that's slated, but yeah.
Our friend Webster Slaughters, he was pretty adamant that he could take anyone down, so he's looking for a worthy adversary.
Well, I don't think I'm that, but I'll play casually. It sounds like if he's calling that shot, he seems pretty confident. I don't know if I'm going to bring my wallet to that game anyway.
Yeah, no. But speaking of competitions, I do know that there is a competition for the Browns backers organizations out there, and basically what happens is the chapter with the most bookings will get an all expenses paid balcony cabin for 2 on the Browns fan cruise. The chapter with the highest members to bookings ratio also gets an all expenses paid ocean view cabin for 2. All members of the winning chapter will receive a specialty dining pass for 2 guests, and all members of the winning chapter will receive a Browns fan cruise commemorative Cleveland Browns autographed football. So with that in mind, is there anything that you want to say to Browns backers across the nation and across the world, really?
I mean, we're aware of your support, and I actually watched, unfortunately, it was the Steelers game most recently, but I watched with the Powell Browns backers outside of Columbus, Ohio, at their local establishment. And that was my first time being with a Browns backers organization watching a game, and it was awesome. I've always heard, I know guys that are members of some local Browns backers club or get together or gathering, and they go to every game and watch together. And I have always heard about it, but until you join and watch a game with them, you realize how special it was. And it was really, really cool to be amongst fans that are supporting. I think it's so cool that there's clubs in England and, to your point, across the pond, all corners of the country. I think that's very cool. The Browns fans, run deep. And there's a lot of them, and they are owed a winning team, and they deserve a winning team. And we think that there's one on the field currently. Awesome.
Well, hey, John, we really appreciate you joining us today. We will be catching up more on the fan cruise. We have plenty more stories to tell, I'm sure.
Real quick, just thoughts on. Obviously the team's been a little bit up.
Can't forget about this.
A little bit up, a little bit down this year. Deshaun's been out of the lineup a little bit. What are your thoughts, kind of, on, is this team meeting your expectations? Do you think there's a playoff run here in this team yet? Still?
Yeah, I do. The fact that they're 500 right now going into the bye, I think they're in a good spot. We all saw, you look around this division in particular, and we saw how Cincinnati started. They were able to take care of business there. And, look, they were ready to, could you imagine being in Cincinnati? They were ready to jump overboard. It looked like it was all gloom and doom. And then they showed flashes of life over the weekend and got back to where, we were kind of expecting them to be. Unfortunately, the Browns lost the first battle between them and the Steelers and the Ravens. But, look, right now they still have they play each of those divisional opponents one more time throughout the year. If they handle business there, they're going to be in the mix. So they just got to take care of business in the division. That's the easiest path to the playoffs. And other than that, they have a really, really talented 49ers team coming in here next weekend. And we all kind of saw what they did to Dallas, Sunday night. But look, this is the NFL. The 49ers are traveling here, playing on East Coast time, and it'll be 10 in the morning West Coast time when they're getting ready to go. And let's see, maybe they'll be a little bit more flat coming off a big win, and the Browns are rested. I do like the defense. I think that they'll have kind of a get right game coming back, and I think that they're hungry and they want to prove that they can carry this team or help this team win if the running game isn't there, or if the Browns are struggling to score offensively. I think the defense knows that they're talented enough to at least take the ball away and create a short field or more opportunities. And guys, it comes down to the play of Deshaun Watson, and he's shown that he's the player that got the contract, and I think he still has that talent. So if Kevin Stefanski and the Browns offensive coaches can put a good game plan together, and they don't turn the ball over, they protect and get a little bit of a run game going, I still think they could be very dangerous going into the middle part of the season.
Well said. Well said. And it is nice that we have that defense that we can lean on in the absence of Nick Chubb the rest of the season. But again, John, like I said, it's great talking to you. It was wonderful having you on the show. We expect to catch up with you on the Fan Cruise in March of 2024. Do another interview, hear a few more stories, get those out for the people. But again, pleasure having you. We appreciate it, and thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, and look forward to catching up on the cruise ship and meeting some fans. Hey, this is former Cleveland Brown John Greco. You're listening to Burning River Sportscast. Go Browns.